today is more about housekeeping maintenance on your Celigo. So you probably got a lot of people working on your Celigo and creating a lot of scans, and you're like, oh, I want to better organize it. So I'm going to show you some of the tricks that you can use to help you do that. So we're going to first talk about how the file structure is on the Celigo, and let me slow this down. It's going a little fast. And I'll pause it for a second. So we're going to talk about the file structure on the Celigo, how the ability to create a scan and have multiple scans attached to one plate ID. Some of the right-click functions, those are hidden buttons that are not obvious right away. What is the difference between a user and a folder? And what are the filters and how you can better search for your data using the filters? And then the tabs. Basically, there's 3 tabs at the top, and I want to show you what each of them contain. And then you have the button features. So how do you import, export, and delete your scans? You can actually merge scans together. That's something I've shown some users that didn't realize that they didn't need to create multiple scan IDs for the same plate. And then how do you recover or re-import your data? And then how do you check all and uncheck all? And then in the last part of it, I want to show you guys how you can actually create new users for the system. So if you have new lab people coming into your lab, or you have new lab groups, then you can actually create new users. Okay. Okay, so here we are logging in as LAdmin. It has administrative privileges, so it can see all the scans and the users, and it can create and delete users. All right, so these are the 4 start buttons on the Start tab, and the blue one at the bottom is where we're going to hang out today. It's called Manage Data. So clicking on that will bring you into this new view. It's actually all of your data scans, and the first part is we're going to talk about the left-hand column. It is the search area and filter settings area. So here you can see a lot of different parameters that you can search to find your data. And in this section on the right is actually displaying the scans and the files of the analysis. All right, so let's just play around with some of the search data. I want to show you, if you type in here data management, so I want to find a scan that has that in it. So here we have displayed the scan IDs that have data management plate 1. So this is just to help you see the structure of the scans in the database. So we have a caret. Once you click on it, it opens up and expands the arrow to show this scan ID has multiple scans and multiple results. So this is one plate ID, data management plate number 1, and then it was created or is stored in the user demo, and then it's created by the user, demo user. And the description here is just demo data management 1. These are all things I just entered in to show the layout. Here is the first scan, and it gives you the date and the timestamp. So that's how it's all organized, is through date and time. It tells you the number of the channels, the image format, and in this case it's compact. And then this is the first scan for this scan ID. And then the next line down is scan results, and there's actually 3 scan results or 3 analyses for this single scan. So, and then again, it's ordered in time chronological. So those are just scan descriptions I created for you, so you could see this layout and structure. So then this second scan, if you just click on the little arrow, it opens up and shows you the additional results that are in it. And then you can do that at any of the carets or arrows on the left. That allows you to open and collapse the scan IDs to show their different scans and analyses. So here's a right-click function. If you just right-click on the scan ID, you have the opportunity to rename the scan ID, or you can modify this description, which is over in the far right column. You can also check all of this or uncheck all of the scans from this plate ID level. So here, right-clicking, I've not only clicked the scans, but I also have the scan results checked. Now, when you right-click on the scan itself, you have multiple options, such as loading the scan into the results, or modifying the description, or actually deleting the images from that scan. And again, you can uncheck or check all from here. And when you right-click on the result, you can load this scan with this result in the Results tab. The previous one you saw where we could load the scan would bring you to the Analysis tab. And you also have the opportunity to modify the scan description again here. All right, so say you've done a lot of filtering, but you want to get back to a normal state. So this clicking Reset Filters will bring you back to the beginning as if you just entered into the Data Manage tab. So it removes all the checks and any filters you have already set up. So this section here, the folders, you see the column folders. You'll actually see column folders on the display area on the left, on the right side. And in this section, you can see the third column says a check has data. So there are certain users, like the service doesn't have any scans or data, admin doesn't have any, but these other users or folders do have data. And when you have the filters reset, all of the all of the folders will be checked on. But if you double click with your mouse on a particular folder or person, then it will just highlight that person or check that person and remove the checks from all the other ones. Unchecking, you can basically single click the mouse to add or unselect individual folders or users. As you're doing that, you can see the files were actually showing or being displayed on the right side. Another option is to do the check all or uncheck in this upper box area here. Okay, so if you just double click this ADC, you should see just only two files show up. And as you check one more box and remove the other one, the display area is updating. Again, we'll use reset filters to clear all these checks and unchecks so we can get back to the beginning state where all of the users and folders are checked on so we can see all of the displayed data again. Remember, we're logged in as admin, so we get to see all of the users' data displayed here. Okay, on the bottom half on the left-hand column, we have more filter parameters. So you have plate filters, scan filters, and result filters. So these are, if you have a specific thing in mind that you're looking for, you can actually be very specific for the filters. So say, for instance, you knew that your experiments were only run with a certain plate type, you can actually go through this drop-down menu here and select the specific plate profile that you used in your experiment. So you knew you did wound healing with this platypus plate, so then you can click on that and you can see we have a wound healing experiment showing up on the display area. Or if you're like, I'd wonder to know who was actually running experiments with this 6-well plate. So then you can click on that and see, oh, somebody was using colony counting for this kind of plate type. So you can actually get an idea of how somebody's other experiments are working for this type of plate. Okay, or if you want to find somebody's experiment that you know that you can select that specific user and display only their scans. Or you can find it with no scans. Say you created a plate ID, but you never scanned that day because something might have gone wrong, but the system still has that plate ID in it. So you can actually select no scans, and then on this right-hand side, obviously I don't have any, but you could check it and delete so it doesn't show up in the system anymore, just to kind of do some housekeeping and cleaning up your database. Now in the scan filters, the first option you have is to filter out by the channel number. So right now it's any number of channels, but if you switch it to equals 2, and then on the right box you have the option to select the number of channels. Currently it's set at 1. You can see all the scans have been updated on the right to show single scan or single channel scans. And as you switch it to 2, you can see there's more other type of applications like viability, cell cycle, and these are definitely scans that require 2 channels. And here on the third column over in the display area, it confirms that you've seen 2 channels. Okay, now let's get back to resetting our filters. So we're back to the beginning without any filtering. Everybody is being displayed. You can also filter out by the dates. So if you're having a certain time frame that you knew your project was taking place on and you want to get those displayed on the right side, you can use your dates. Or if created by a specific person, or if you want to look at stuff that hasn't been analyzed yet, you can click on yes or no to the results. And then you have the results filter. So this one you can actually say, well, I'd like to find what application, maybe tumor spheres, who's doing this, or I want to see what those scans are. And so we have 4 scans showing up with the tumor sphere application. So this one looks like it was multiple days of scanning. So it has growth tracking for tumor spheres. So it's showing 1 tumor sphere channel for this scan. Okay. And again, if you have analysis created by a specific person, you can do that. So let's reset our filter back to the beginning again. And now we'll cover the 3 tabs at the top: data, settings, and summary. So currently we're looking at the data. The other one I want to look at is the settings. So if during your scan you were in the Analyze tab and you created some settings and then saved them for further use, this is where you would see that files being saved. And then also in the gating section, if you had saved gating section gates, then that would show up here as a file that's been saved. So the A denotes analysis settings, C is classification settings, and E stands for experiment settings. So if you're wondering where did those get saved, now you can see in the database or in Data Manage where those files are and what those applications were. And here in the left on the bottom, you can filter out to specifically look only at, say, experiments. Then it would only display the experiments that were saved. Now remember, experiments are the whole workflow process. It is specifically your plate, your focus, your illumination, your channels, your analysis, and your gating. Everything is all inclusive. It's a one-stop shop. But the analysis is purely the analysis parameters. So that gives you the ability to use analysis for different plate types, but it's the same type of application in different plate types. And then you can switch applications created by certain people, or you can find them between different dates. So what I would like to cover next is going to be how to import and export these files. So the file structure for this has a different ending. So basically, if you export an analysis setting or a classification or an experiment, the ending of the file name is slightly different. So analysis is .cas, classification is CCS, and experiment is CES. So you can see when you click the export button, it has that file ending then you can send these to people if you're like, just use these analysis settings. So then you would have the user imported into the system, and then they would see that analysis setting in their database. Here we're going to export the classification. So the classification, again, is the gating parameter. So that would typically be something for like cell cycle or GFP transfection, where you're looking only at certain fluorescent stain. And then the experiment settings. That, again, is the whole process from loading the plate, the channels, the focus, everything, analysis and gating, anything that's an all-inclusive experiment settings. So if you have a system where you're acquiring the images and you have to move your data over to, say, the satellite instrument, then you can import your data and your experiment settings using this import-export option. The third tab up here is called the Summary tab. LAdmin is the only one that has, in the service, it has the ability to look at this tab. Non-admin users don't have access to this tab. And it gives you kind of a good high-level look of the health of your data as far as how much data is in there, how many plates, scans, experiments, etc. And then actually the space that the system is taking up. So the computer size that you have may have 1 or 2 terabytes, and this will tell you how many gigabytes of actual space has been used and how much is available. So this is important to understand in case you get to the point where you've almost maxed it out. You basically will start to see the system slow down when you have close to maxed out situation, and you should start to archive your data. So this will give you a spotlight to see how often you are acquiring data over time, and to see when the most time is, when you have downtime, that you can actually start doing some archiving. So I find this helpful to kind of help me determine how close I am to maximum, and then I can start archiving my data and backing it up on the network drive. You also have the ability to look at who has the most data in what folder or what user. So this tells you by size, or size of the scans, how much data is in a specific folder. So for instance, the apoptosis viability folder has 129 gigabytes. So I'd probably want to start archiving that if it's not being currently used. And then, so this is by folder breakdown. You can also do it by who created it. So in this situation, the local administrator basically was creating all the scans, so I would probably want to contact the local administrator to start archiving data if it's getting too full. Okay, so let's get back to the data tab. So you've seen all 3 tabs and what they can show you. What I'd like to do now is show you how you can create folders. All users have the permissions to create folders, and they can basically use this for projects. Or one of the things I like to do is create like a trash folder, so that you have the ability to, it's kind of like your recycle bin on your desktop. If you create this recycle bin on Celigo database, people can move their data that they want to get rid of into that folder, and then the admin can go and delete it when he has downtime. So currently, to create a folder, you click that yellow icon, you can give it a name, and then you can establish who has access to that folder. So in this case, we want to add a couple of users, so we'll add the demo and the scientist users to this folder. And currently the default comes up where they have read access only, and you can change that to be read, read, write, delete, or full. So full is actually allowing you to move data into folders or out of folders. And then let's add the scientist. So if you have user groups, you can do a whole user group too. Okay. So now the system is updating and adding a folder to our left-hand column folders group, and you can see it right here. It says cell cycle. It does not have data in it currently because we just created it. So how do we add data to this newly created folder? Let's do a search and find some cell cycle data in the database. So I'm just going to here type in cell cycle and see what comes up. Here I have on the right-hand column 4 scans or 4 scan IDs. They're created by the Scientist 1 and Demo, and they do have privileges to the cell cycle folder. So let's go ahead and move it into that folder. So you can check in individually or check them all by using this check all box up here. And then we'll just click on this moves checked plates into specific folder icon. And then the drop-down menu will find our cell cycle folder. And then click OK. Now the system will update that second column to show that it has been moved into the cell cycle folder. And you can see on the left-hand column, there is a check in the third column which has data. All right, let's reset our filter and bring us back to the beginning state. All right, so what if you have somebody that has joined the group or has left the group and you need to change permissions? So you can basically modify those permissions by clicking on this middle white icon. It opens up that folder that we just created. And at this point, you see all the users who have access, and you can change the permissions. So again, I find folders a healthy way to organize your data, and I highly recommend maybe creating either a recycle bin or a trash folder in your database so that it gives you a place to actually put scans that you want to eliminate off of your database, but you don't want to do it right now because it takes a little time if you have a bunch of them. All right, now I want to show you how to modify some scans. So basically, I just did a search for a specific date, and I have 1 scan ID with 1 scan and 2 scan results. So what I'd like to first show you how to delete specific things. So these 2 icons here are your import and export buttons. What I'd like to do is delete this specific analysis, and I'm going to use the red X up above. And it's just going to delete this analysis, not the scan, but just the analysis. So if you had a lot of different trial and errors on your analyses, but you finally just settled on the first one, then you can delete all the extras. And then when you click it, it refreshes to with the closed version, and now you can see I only have 1 analysis result with the scan and plate ID. So if you want to export the scan for archiving, you just click on the checkbox and then click on the export. And you have the option to export and delete. So it's kind of 2 steps in one, or you can do it individually, export it first and then come back and delete it later. So when you are exporting, I highly recommend not saving those scans on the same computer as your Celigo scans. It just takes up double the space on your system, and it will be filled up way doubly fast. You can save it originally on the desktop and then move it to a network location that's actually backed up. Okay, so at this point you could go ahead and delete this scan because we've already deleted or exported it and saved it to the desktop. So I just showed you the two-step version. You could also do the single-step version. Now let's go ahead and import that same one that I just deleted. You have to choose the location where you want to find these scans. The default comes up into this local archives one. We're going to go ahead and browse. I know I put it on the desktop, so let's click on the desktop. There's the scan. Now when you click on it and then select folder, it's not going to show up. Why is it not showing up on this display page? That's the scan that I want to import. The reason is because it's actually looking for the folder above the scan that you're going to import. So let's click up one level, so that's literally the desktop icon, and then hit select folder. Now it's showing up in your display area. So you want to be one level up where your scan folder is. So it's looking as if the desktop is a folder. So you want to select that desktop folder, not the scan itself, because it's looking at the scan as a whole package. And there it has the one scan scan time on it. Now notice the second column has new name. So if you wanted to establish a new name for your scan, you can do that by right-clicking the column. It says rename. So you just click on that and it opens the dialog box up to allow you to change the name to whatever you want. So for instance, we'll just put version 2. Sometimes somebody might be spelling something wrong or put it under the project name that was wrong. So this allows you to adjust the scan ID name for this scan. And then when you click OK, it will then perform the importing and give you the checkbox and then tell you in the right-hand column where it's actually how it was imported. And then when we click reset filters, and then we'll do again a search for that same scan, you can see that we have our new scan with the 2 behind it, the one that we just renamed. Let's say that you didn't want to have that 2 there and you want to change it to something else. You can right-click on that scan ID and rename it here. So you don't have to go through the import-export to rename things. You can just do it right here in the display area. Just right-click on the scan ID and hit enter and you're good to go. You can also add a description to your scan by right-clicking on the description area, clicking modify description, and you're good to go. So the first one is the plate ID level, then you have the scan level, and then the result, the analysis result level. Let's say, for instance, a user didn't realize that they didn't need to create a new scan ID every time they scanned every day. So here we have literally the same plate, but it has a new plate ID for each day. You really want to merge it into the first one. So all 4 scans you want to have under the first scan ID so that you can do a growth tracking curve. How can we do that? So what you need to do, unfortunately, is export the scans that you want to merge into the first scan ID. So you can see that we have individual scans with different scan ID names. And I want to link them together so we could do growth tracking curve, but we have to actually export them first and then import them with the new scan ID that is listed at the first scan ID. So let's go ahead and check the last 3 scans or plate IDs. This will be checking everything underneath it, not only the plate ID, but the scan and the result. And then we're going to export it onto the desktop. There's our progress bar. Now I don't want to delete them just yet. I'll come back and delete them in a little bit. Let's go and import them first in the merged file. We'll merge them first and then we'll come back and delete them. That way you can verify that all the scans came back in with the same scan times. So let's use the left green button. It says import scans. And we're going to go to the desktop. Here are the 3 scan times that we actually have exported just a second ago. We're going to select the desktop, not the individual scans. Now we have all of these scans already existing in the database. So you can see everyone is checked. What we want to do is merge the last 3 into the first one. So we're going to right-click and change the file name to match exactly what we wanted to merge into. If there's anything missing or added, like a space, it's going to create a different scan ID. So it's best to be very specific, exact on the scan ID that you want it to be. See how it says number 8 instead of 7? We need to have it be 7. Otherwise, it would have created an 8. One thing I've done in the past is just highlight the one that I want it to be and then just go paste it into the other 3 instead of just doing this deleting. It's just too risky, I think. Okay. Now what we need to, so that's the original, this is the new name. And next we need to check the boxes for the ones that we want to import. So we're just going to check the bottom 3. And then we'll click import. This is how you're going to merge scans together. Now this is restricted to actually having the same plate format and vendor type. So the plate profile has to match for this merging to be taken place. So you can see it was successful in importing and merging into the scan ID that we wanted it all to be. All right, let's hit reset filters and pull that scan ID into the search data again. The original files are still here. We haven't deleted them yet. We'll get to that in a second. We're going to use this as a verification that they're properly imported. So now this is the one that should have all of them. And there they are. So we have all 4 of the scans now under one plate ID. And we can do growth tracking curves with this single plate ID. And you can see this one is at 11.8 at 2:07. and we'll verify that this one was 11.8 at 207. So we do have them duplicated in here, but we're going to get rid of this one in a minute. But this is just good verification that everything is there that you wanted. And now we can go ahead and delete those extra scans. Oh, I guess we'll delete later. Why don't we add a tag? Why not? So let's add a tag. So sometimes people want to add some details besides a description to their scans or projects that give them a little bit more searchability. So for instance, this might have been a validation project. So we can type in the word validation, and you can add the tag at any level. So you're just basically clicking the level that you want, and then the tag will be added to that level. So say you click the scan, the first scan, and you add the tag. And here you can call it val1. So this might have been the first validation run. This would be the second validation run, and so forth. So now you can see another way to do this is to have a validation project under one scan ID, but all the validation runs are lumped together, and you can tag them or you can delete them. So now in the search bar, you can use those as your search parameter and see what comes up. So if you type in the validation, you can see that plate comes in. If you just wanted to look at the first scan, so you type in val1. So if you have multiple projects that you want to just look at the first validation run, you can type in val1. That's what our tag is. There you can see only the first scan shows up because that's the tag val1. Okay, so this is kind of important if you're looking at archiving and deleting a bunch of stuff. You have to understand that you may have a lot of data, so it's going to be under multiple pages. So currently we can only display so many on this one page. So if we double click the demo scan or demo user, we actually have 2 pages worth of scans. So if we want to display that second page, we just click the side arrow, and now you can see there's only actually 1 scan on the second page. Now, say you want to archive these, so you basically are going to do check all. Not only will it add the checks to all of this page, it will add checks to all of the pages for that folder. So if you had 5 pages, all of the checks would be for all 5 pages. If you're deleting, it would check all of the scans for all 5 pages and so forth. So I just want you to know that it's not just what you see displayed, it's also all the pages. If you're not certain what's checked and what's unchecked, just click Reset Filters and get back to the beginning. You know that everything is in an unchecked state except for the folders on the left-hand column. Okay, so after you've actually done a lot of deleting, so for instance, this is our test. We want to actually delete the ones that we don't want anymore since we've merged them. And this is where I would recommend maybe creating that user folder, delete or trash or recycle bin, move these scans into that folder, and then when you have downtime, then you can go in and select all of those scans for archiving and deleting or whatever you need. So at this point, I have deleted, or I have checked those 3. I click on the red X and I click yes, and then it deletes those extra scans now. And I only have the one I merged together, which is great. So if you've done a lot of deleting, you want to do a recover free space. That's basically kind of restructuring your database so it doesn't have anything left over. It doesn't have any cache left over. So do this when you have downtime, or maybe at the end of the day when nobody's in the lab scanning, because it may require some time to do it if your database is really, really full. So you'll get a warning message just saying, hey, this is an extensive and could take some time. Might want to do this when you're not running a whole lot of scans, or after you've got some project that's finished and it's not going to interfere with somebody's scan time. So for right now, we'll just click no. This is more of an administrative task. It should be done once in a while. Maybe you should set up a quarterly cleanup of your database to kind of give the health of your Celigo so it doesn't get slowed down. As your database gets full, close to maximum, you're going to notice your Celigo slows down. It's not this instrument, it's the database doesn't have any place to write the data to. So highly recommend go to the maximum. How do you create new users? So somebody joins the lab and you want to give them a specific user ID that they can have them log into. We'll go back to the Start tab, and in the Administration button in the upper right, now this is only available to an LAdmin user. Click on Administration, and then the second one is Manage Users. This dialog box opens up. In the left-hand column, it tells you you have local admins. So you can create a user that has local admin privileges, or you can create a scientist. So here we have demo and scientist. So let's create a new scientist. Using the green plus sign in the upper right corner. It asks you to give the first and last name. This will appear at the top and how it shows up in the created by column. And then the sign in. So this user login name is what you're going to type in. And this is the permission settings down below. Click Save, and you see that they're added to the left-hand column. And again, these are the areas that you would want to deactivate a user on the bottom if you had somebody leave the lab that you want to just not have them show up in the drop-down menu anymore, or you don't want them to log in anymore. You can create groups. On the second tab, you can add, excuse me, create a group by clicking the green plus sign, give it a name, and then on the right-hand column, you basically have the list of people that are available to choose from. You select it and then click the arrow to move it over to the next column. So this provides convenience. So instead of selecting a lot of individuals, you can create a lab group. So if you create a new folder, you just select the lab group instead of individuals. Okay, so now we see on the left, there's a folder person named Scientist2. And we want to give this person permissions to a specific folder. They don't have any data yet, but they should be able to access some other projects. So let's say, for instance, we want them to start working in the apoptosis project world. So we give them permission by clicking on the folder name, clicking this icon. It opens up the parameters, and here we have the lab group A and administrator. So I want to add the scientist too. Or I can just add group B, and I want to have them with full access. or just read write. So why log in with a specific user? Why not just have admin for everybody to see everybody's scans? Well, sometimes you have projects that you don't want other people to be working or playing around with. So you can create scientists with specific user IDs so that they only see their data or specific project data. So now you can see Scientist 2 has ability to view the apoptosis folder. And when they go to scan or do analysis, they can see the scans in that folder and load them on the Celigo. So now this newly created user has the ability to see that project group of scans. Currently, the admin is, when you first buy the instrument, does not have a password, but you have the ability to give it a password if you choose to do so for your lab. Okay, so we've covered a lot today. It's basically how to manage your data better and give you an understanding of the file structure, of what users versus folders are, how to use the filters to find your data fast, and then how to import, export, merging and deleting data, and then also how to create users and give permissions. It's really useful to get educated on this and then also share that with some of your people so that they can better manage their data as well. Okay? And if you guys have any questions, I want to open up the floor so you guys can ask some questions.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. I think that was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
So, like Sarah said, we are opening this time to answer any questions that our attendees have for us. So I'll give you guys just a minute or two to type those questions in. You can just type them into the questions bar. As a reminder, you guys are muted. So while we're waiting to see if we get any questions that come through, I just want to remind our attendees that we do encourage you guys to submit topics for future webinars, whether it's the Celometer or the Celigo or any of Nexcelom's products. If you guys have any, applications you're interested in learning about, anything at all, cell types you're interested in seeing counted and how to do that, we'd be happy to take any suggestions for future topics that you're willing to learn about. You can email us at support@nexcelom.com, or there's a short survey at the end of this webinar that you guys can fill out, and you can just type in your suggestions there. We'll be happy to review anything you guys submit. So I'll just see if we get some questions in. I'll just wait another minute or so. Okay, so I'm not really seeing any questions come through. So I guess that will conclude our webinar for today. If you guys do think of any questions later on, feel free to give us a call or email us at support@nexcelom.com. We'd be happy to take any questions you guys have, anything on this content we saw today, or any other questions you guys might have for us. Thank you guys for joining us, and thanks, Sarah, for a wonderful presentation, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everyone, for attending.
Bye.
Bye.